Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Latter-day Struggles. This is your host, Valerie. Pleased and delighted to get to be with each of you here again today. This is a part 2 of a several-part series. You are my people. You're my Friday fellowship. You're here for the deep dive. You want to deepen and expand your spiritual capacities because you have gone on an LDS or connected faith journey and you're ready for more. This is the group or a group that I love connecting with you because you have taken the LDS faith crisis and you're making deep and rich meaning of it. I have maintained, and I still feel this way, that every faith crisis does not necessarily lead to an awakening of consciousness. It sometimes can stagnate and sort of keep us fixed in lower stages of development, only clinging on to sort of a new kind of orthodoxy. But if you're here, to me, that says you have a motivation and a commitment to not only work through the faith crisis, but to do something that expands your soul. So here we go. Let's spend a few minutes talking about waking up. Waking up is sometimes called a peak experience. And so I feel pretty comfortable in saying if you're listening to this podcast, you have had or many waking up experiences. You have had something happen to you that was profound, where it's almost like your normal everyday consciousness alters a little bit, and you have a deep, impactful spiritual experience. This is a firsthand experience. If you have a waking up experience, you know what happened. It's not like somebody has to tell you about it. You actually know firsthand that it happens because it has a beginning and an ending. Something that I had never really thought about until I studied about this is that you'll have to think this through and see if this is something that feels right to you. With these peak experiences or state experiences, oftentimes maybe in the midst of them, it's more a profound and overwhelming feeling, or it's an experience that is deeply impactful to us, almost at the soul level, but frequently it isn't interpreted into directives or words, or maybe it eventually is, but in the height of this spiritual connection with something divine within us, connecting us to our divine, it oftentimes is ineffable. It's not interpreted per se. And yet, at the same time, when we step out of, or when this peak experience ends, frequently we move into a meaning-making frame and try to make sense of what that just was, what just happened there. This is a practice that is a deep part of spiritual traditions in the East. And so you and me, most of us listening to this, are in the West. The majority of us, and this is not everybody, because I've actually talked to quite a few people from around the world, but a lot of us are North American, and we are not overly familiar with these deep, years-long meditative experiences that people have who have been studying this through their cultures and traditions, where this is a deep focus of the human experience. So when we have this ineffable experience, so circle back, if you would, with me to the moment when you're in the midst of, and you might even remember, if you would like to, just ponder for a second, when was a moment where you had a deeply spiritual state experience. Okay. The difference is that we can sort of fall into these peak experiences no matter who we are and what sort of spiritual practices we have had. But in the East, there are people, and certainly gurus, who have spent years and years practicing moving into more subtle and even causal levels of their consciousness. So the second type of radical wholeness is growing up. Okay, now growing up, in contrast to waking up, is something that one does not necessarily observe. We move through stages of psychological development slowly and gradually, and we don't exactly know when one begins and the other ends. And quite frankly, I'm sure they shade into each other. And so, unlike a state experience, which has a beginning and an end, and we, finish something and go, holy moly, that just happened. Whoa, right? That's not how growing up is. Growing up is invisible to us. It's kind of in some ways like learning a language. It's happening. It matters. There are definitely ways to observe when it's already happened, but in the moment, it's kind of going on, sort of in the background. So we cannot observe it, but we can know when it has happened if we are aware that stages of development are a thing. Interestingly enough, one of the markers that actually hastens one's ability to move through stages of psychological development is the awareness of stages of psychological development. And I can corroborate this all day long, because when I have had people reach back out to me and talk about episode 33 of the Latter-day Struggles podcast, probably the most feedback of any podcast or of any episode I've ever gotten was episode 33, because I walk the beginning Latter-day Struggler through one of the many models of stages of faith development. And I cannot tell you how many people in tears or deep emotion have approached me in person or through letters to say, oh my goodness, what I'm experiencing now makes sense. They're understanding that there was a model of development, and that they fit inside of that in and of itself was a marker of their ability to make meaning of their life and therefore to grow, because growth happens outside of, the context of chaos. Oftentimes when we're in so much chaos that we can't sort of get a handle on our lives, that makes it hard to evolve in the direction of growth. It's not impossible, but it is a barrier. Someone can be in that very tribal, mythic, God-believing place and have an experience that sort of shakes their commitment to that a little looser and opens them up to the potential for growth. On the other hand, sometimes somebody who is deeply entrenched in a tribal religious system can have a waking up experience that will then be used to more deeply entrench them in that very same tribal religious experience. Isn't that interesting? That really helped me understand, or continues to help me understand, something that has been consistently flustering and sometimes painful and problematic to people on a faith journey, either themselves or loved ones or partners, where their ability to see their loved one's growth as they are moving into a deeper spectrum of faith is missed completely, because someone on the side of more devotion to their traditional beliefs has had such deep waking up experiences that they just cannot or will not, are not able to move beyond the interpretation of that experience. That, for example, to sort of give you more of a sense of like on the ground, that like somebody may say, I don't want to disbelieve my partner and all of his or her experiences, but I've had such deep, powerful, revelatory experiences that this is the true church. There's no possible way she or he can be having a faith experience. They have to be wrong, because my experiences have told me this. The interesting thing is, of course, that both people can have had deep spiritual experiences. They are just being translated through the only hardware that they have based on their level of psychological development. So that is sometimes very tricky, but it also gives us a way to make meaning of and to honor earlier, deep, rich spiritual experiences. I've also worked with a lot of people who have said, they're kind of embracing where they are on their growth journey, but they're also looking back at some deep spiritual experiences and kind of dismissing them or doubting themselves or shaming themselves, like, oh, that was so silly. I was just like delusional. And it's like, no, you were not delusional. That experience is allowed to be exactly what it was. It was deep and rich and meaningful and true, and it was from God, and it awakened you, and it was there for you, serving you in a way that was necessary at that point in time. And now you have different hardware. Your translation system is different. And so you can look at it and interpret that experience from a different lens if you choose. That has offered people an abundance of peace as they're able to not just sort of throw away or dismiss profound and very important earlier spiritual experiences, and also those spiritual experiences that their loved ones have that are in a different stage of faith. All of them get to count. And that is how human beings remain whole, is by holding on to every aspect of our early development and recognizing that we are building something that is divine through each level of our development. So grateful for you to be here with me, and can't wait to share the next 3 tenets with you. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Latter-day Struggles. If this podcast has supported your faith journey, we invite you to explore the many ways you can continue your healing and growth with us. On our website, you'll find support and processing groups, marriage and parenting courses, and free resources to support where you are in your faith journey. You can also join Valerie in the live fellowship gatherings throughout the year, where we connect, process the podcast, and build meaningful friendships with others on similar paths. If cost has ever been a barrier, we offer podcast scholarships funded by listener donations. To explore all of these offerings, visit the link in today's show notes or go to latterdaystruggles.com. And if this podcast has been meaningful to you, leaving a 5-star review is one of the most powerful ways to help others find this work. Latter-day Struggles is proud to be part of the Dialogue Podcast Network.
Dialogue Podcast Network.